Welcome everybody to the Norton Planning Board's meeting of Tuesday, December the 3rd. Again, members of the public are welcome to participate in person or remotely. In person, we are at the Norton Town Hall at 72 East Main Street. There's also a Zoom link available for this meeting agenda, or if you'd like to join directly, the meeting ID is 638-929-1060. And after 4.5 years, yes, I do have that memorized. The meeting will also be available on Norton Cable Access and on the Norton Media Center's YouTube page following the session. For future sessions, please feel free to email questions for the board ahead of the meeting to Brian Carmichael, town staff, so that they can be read into the record in the event you're not able to attend. I did want to note just one item about today's meeting. We do have a new town clerk, and they did post the agenda on the town's calendar page. And they didn't quite carry it through to every single page on the town website that our agendas do normally get posted to, but it was hung in the lobby. Paul did consult with town council, and they felt that we did meet the standard for posting, which is why we're proceeding with the meeting tonight. Otherwise, we would have postponed. Any questions on that point before we dive in here? Okay. Well, I'm going to skip over planning board business and policies and for the minute here. And we did have a number of minutes that we were looking to approve. As we do have some applicants in front of us, unless we have any objections, I'll take the applicants first and we can handle our approval of minutes at the conclusion. Okay. The first applicant that we're looking to hear is an A&R endorsement, A&R-8 for 9 West Main Street. The applicant is Rebecca Carvalho. The owners are listed as well. Paul, do you know if anybody is here to present from that application? Or did you want to give us an overview?
Actually, Rich Riccio is the engineer, is here on the call. He's on Zoom.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Okay, I do have the plan I can share on the screen if that's helpful.
Please do. You should have the ability to share. If you don't, there you go.
All right, can everybody see the plan?
Yes.
All right, this is the lot at the corner of West Main Street and Mansfield Ave. We're actually working with Chris Perna, the guys that own the old library, and they requested us to put together a subdivision plan to cut out a piece of the lot adjacent to them that Ms. Morgan and Mr. Miller own. The lot has sufficient area and frontage for the VCC zoning district, and we're submitting this plan for endorsement by the planning board this evening.
Okay, thank you. And I know that kind of circular drive has kind of a couple of spurs. That serves 2 houses, right, on the neighboring lot?
Yeah, it serves they have the main house, and then there's a secondary structure. I believe he has an art studio, and it's the same owners that they occupy both buildings.
Okay. And is there going to be, what is the plan for proposed lot 1, and assuming that there's going to be an easement over the existing driveway?
Yeah, the plan for lot 1 is to add some auxiliary parking for the library eventually. We'd be coming in for a site plan review with that. I think the intent is actually to close off the driveway onto Mansfield Ave, and they would use the single driveway off of West Main Street.
Okay, that makes sense. Paul, did you have any additional comments from your side on this?
No, other than the parking is going to help with the Old Town Library site that is looking to get a commercial tenant in there. The parking was pretty tight from the site plan approval, so this will add number more parking spaces that will help alleviate the parking issue.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board about the A&R here.
Has the historical commission had any notification about this? This falls in their district.
Not on the subdivision, but we will be reviewing the parking lot plan with them as we go through the site plan review process. This was just the first step, was to create the lot.
Just for clarification purposes, when you say you're gonna close the egress on Mansfield Ave, is that both the original one that's on the library lot now and just make a
Oh,
single?
no, this would just be the small driveway for the
On lot one.
residential use.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, this could just be a fact, so is this Wheaton-owned property?
no, this property is all owned by, Matthew Miller and Kathleen Morgan. This is one big parcel, map 17 lot 2, and then, the old Wheaton Library is owned by Library Square LLC. And they're the proponents that are, developing the commercial space within that library.
Oh, thank you, I stand corrected. Some info I had that wasn't right.
I know we had a site plan review on the old library building 2 years ago, a year ago?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
We're getting closer to a tenant. I don't think anything's been signed yet, but I know they've been working with a couple different people, so
Thank
hopefully
you.
we'll have something there soon.
What sort of use could we envision for this building? I was
For the library,
curious. Yeah,
it was, the last I had heard, it was potentially an event planner would be using that as their home base.
okay,
Something, not very intense use at this point, but it could expand further from that within the building.
Thank you.
I don't have much more information other than that at this point.
yeah. Like office things.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, again, I have a concern that one of our most prominent corners in town that's been like a historic looking spot, nice stone wall, beautiful curved driveway, is gonna become a parking lot. And I'm not sure if that's appropriate. I don't know how much I can regulate that, but I would like to hear from the historical commission about their thoughts on this. They control the aesthetics, the buildings, all that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we definitely would want their feedback on with the site plan. From the A&R perspective, it's just the lot line, so. That's where I always struggle too, drawing the line between what action do we take now and what action do we take later.
What is the answer to the, did you get the line drawn?
How subjective can I be about this? Like, it meets criteria, both lots are still the size they need to be.
I think you have to be agnostic with regards to use.
Does this take away from the other lot? Like, is it diminishing
Which lot?
the larger lot, the corner?
It's personal property, they can do what they want with it.
It's under the historic district's, historic commission's district, so there is actually some rules about what they can do with it.
I think they are allowed to sell a piece of it if they so desire.
You're actually right.
So I think the questions that Steve wants to address will probably be handled at a future meeting, because commercial parking in VCC requires a special permit. So I would expect.
Well, this wouldn't be commercial parking, this would be accessory parking to the library.
It's commercial parking in Village Commercial, so I'm assuming they're gonna do A&R to combine those two lots and then we're looking at probably a special permit for a number of cars and the site plan review. I'm assuming a quarter of an acre is gonna hold more than 25 parking spaces.
Paul, did you want to give any context there?
So as we've already been discussing, once they start to file for the site plan special permit, they will need to go to the Historic District Commission for their approval regardless, so they should be through the process, meeting with the Historic District Commission prior, at least concurrent with the submittal of whatever plans we do see. But it certainly triggers a site plan. The parking spaces would trigger it. Special permit, you're probably right, Laura. We just need to, as they provide us a project, we'll have to go through that and make sure that that's whatever. We need to make sure we go through and we identify all the needed requirements.
Yeah, there's also the potential, in Village Center Core, there's no more than one driveway allowed per lot unless there's a waiver by the planning board, so that's a special permit. If they intend to use West Main and the egress that's already on Mansfield Ave.
And I can say we've, Building Commissioner Nick Iafredi and myself have met with the applicant a couple of times. They haven't had plans, we've just talked over concepts of what they would like to do. So once we see something, that'll help us determine, again, all the different permits that they will need.
Any additional questions for the applicant at this time?
The one I had a minute ago where you came down the line, that actually wasn't Tim. I was curious what you came to. You just said you were trying to determine the line between what we can do now and later.
I think in general, the position that I've always taken is that this step in the process is just drawing the line. What goes on is what we look at later. Having the context can help us understand and answer questions, and if there's anything that we want to tweak that's easier to tweak now than tweaking later, then we can do that. And there are some things with an A&R that once you do it, you're kind of putting yourself on a path where you can't go backwards. We dealt with that with a couple of some duplexes off of 140 where we approved an A&R, and that kind of, when we approved the A&R, we essentially signed off on their frontage even though there was a question for it. Nothing like that in this case feels like it's getting into that territory in my head.
Yeah, they meet the 3 standards.
No, thanks, that was the clarity I was seeking. Thanks.
Any additional questions or comments on this?
Motion to endorse A&R 8.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion from Alan and a second from Laura. Is there any further discussion on the motion to endorse? Okay. As everybody is here in person that's attending, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, so that is 4 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention. So that is an endorsement. So we can just sign that. I know Paul has the Mylar. We can sign that at the end of the session. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Riccio.
Thank you all. I look forward to coming back in the very near future with the next step on this, in this process. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing for subdivision modification SDM-2. This is noted as 0 Decal Drive. The applicant is Stephanie Maloney, the owner is Norton Rams LLC. I do see the applicant's attorney coming out, so I will let them introduce themselves and give an overview here. Paul, if you want to just pull up Paul or Brian, if you want to just pull up a map so we can see it on the screen while we're going through that would be great.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Elliot Bray. I'm an attorney in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, representing Norton Rams LLC. As you briefly stated, This was a subdivision that was approved on or about in 1988 by the Norton Planning Board. At that time, there was contemplated to create a decal drive, a short road, a cul-de-sac, 88, 98, 08, 18, 37. A long time has passed. It's never been built. The client, Norton Rams LLC, Mr. Haskell, I believe might be on the line under Ron, has requested, he wanted to delete the lines. So I'd never done it, and I looked up Mass General Law 4181, met with your prior planner, and then met with Paul, who was very, very helpful. And he modified the website to kind of give us an easy way to get it done. And we're asking tonight that the lot lines basically be erased and brought back to one perimeter lot. No work has been done on the site for the construction of the decal drive, and I did provide the board with a title examination from a land court examiner who confirmed that no parcels have been disrupted, conveyed, or anything since this started, which is a requirement. So we'd be asking that the appropriate certificate, I think it's a certificate E, if I'm not mistaken,
Correct.
be allowed, and that would rescind the plan that would go back to the status of 1988 as one large lot.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board for the applicant here? So this is right on the border of Norton and Attleboro, correct?
Correct. It's right next to the transmission building that's in the front there.
It's up behind Lucky Ladies.
Yeah.
Mr. Bray, could you just confirm, I believe this to be the case, but the adjoining property owned by Realty 394 LLC in which there's businesses, that's not included in this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there's no development on the subdivision in question?
Correct.
Thank you.
I got a question about the zoning. There's a couple ways it's split. It's split between commercial and industrial around the driveway, where the two parcels facing the Chartley Pond are industrial, the two parcels facing the road, or 2 or 3 parcels, are zoned commercial, and it splits around the cul-de-sac. And also, that whole district is zoned with the marijuana overlay, except for the cul-de-sac itself, as a public road. When we remove this, how will that change the underlying zoning? The zoning, industrial, commercial, should probably just still follow the lines it is. It's an anomaly. But the marijuana district also will have just that loop in it.
Okay, so Paul, thank you for, Paul or Brian, somebody's on the spot here.
Nice.
So just to speak to that, so the purple is the
Industrial.
industrial? Okay.
The pink is village commercial.
So that shows the,
Regular commercial.
Oh, it is regular?
Yep.
And then
so
the
that
hatch
shows the
mark,
divide there with kind of
This
the
bit
back and the
marijuana,
front.
yeah, the hatch mark is the marijuana overlay, which I think, Paul, could
Correct.
you scroll down just a little bit so we can see the bottom corner? I think that one falls outside.
It covers all of it but the road.
Oh, it does, no, well, I think it would if it weren't a road.
If it weren't a
Reyes.
road.
So I think it would just,
But if we remove the road, does that change the zoning right now?
I don't think so.
So it would remain a blank spot?
No, I think
Mike.
it defaults to the marijuana overlay, because were it not there, it would have been in the overlay, clearly. Everything else surrounding it is.
I think that would need to depend on how we wrote the overlay. Whether it was,
It wasn't by parcel.
Which it means it's very specific then, to where it's actually drawn.
No, it wasn't done by parcel.
Right, so it follows however exactly the map is. Regardless of the change. Whether it's a road or not, it can split. So that means if we remove the road, would it would we have to readjust that, or can it exist like that, just as it is with a blank spot?
I think that's a question for town council, but
yeah, I was trying to pull up the
The
when we-
marijuana overlays were voted as a map, not as by specific parcels. It's not like the, whatever, the water resource protection, where it's just like a list of lots. They were entered in as maps with
Yeah.
specific districts. So this would have been the, I think it was called the 123 corridor district. I think there were 6 districts total.
I think the question would be, we have to go back to how the map was adopted at town meeting. If it was adopted in a way that the road was excluded, or would continue to be excluded when the lot lines are changed, then there'll be a hole, which could be addressed at a future town meeting.
Yeah.
And we would say, we're adjusting the marijuana overlay district because it excluded a street which no longer exists. End of article.
Aside from that, being a town road, this is the only entrance off of 123 facing Chartley Pond, up all the way up to the corner. It's the only road that exists facing south. The state controls those entrances, right? Whether anything's allowed or taken away.
So you're saying the curb cut would have to stay? Is that
The curb cut has to stay there. It's a state issue, not ours, right?
Wouldn't the state have an easement if that were the case?
Because it's a state road.
There's no encumbrance to the state.
I can't speak to what happened in '88. I was finishing law school that year. And I'm relatively new into this situation. But this road has never been constructed. And I'm gonna suggest that there was never a curb cut requested because it was never contemplated to be constructed. That would be my logical explanation, not factual.
Sure, but in theory, the road's never been constructed, but in use for 40 years now, people have been using it for parking next to that business. And you can go on Google Earth and go back. The
Yeah,
whole
it's a
road's been
driveway.
used.
I agree as a
for
driveway,
years.
no question about it.
So again, the regulations on, can we remove it? Like, is it a state issue for the curb cut to exist there? Do we remove the whole road? Does that entrance have to stay?
Paul, did you want to speak to just process?
Well, again, whenever they come back with whatever plan they give us, they would have to inquire with DOT to see if they actually do have a curb cut. I mean, if you see, Brian's just put up there is a way of accessing, which, that's a driveway, that would have been decal drive, but it's not. But we don't know if that's a legal curb cut. They would have to explore that as part of their future resubmittal, whether they're doing another subdivision or going through a special permit.
Because like to me, that doesn't look any different than like Red Mill Road or Farm Lane down the road. They're dirt roads and they're our roads.
Right, but we would need to confirm whether or not that's a legal curb cut that DOT authorizes.
Right.
Assuming this is a DOT maintained at this portion, which I believe it is. There are portions of 123 we maintain by
I think down there they do.
probably.
Okay. So, from your perspective, Paul, that, yes, it's a question, but the question really becomes when the owner looks to do something with it in the future.
Right.
Right now, it's just there.
Correct, that's a good question, but since this is rescinding it or shutting it down, it's a different issue when they're proposing to do something with it.
Rob, you have a question?
Yeah, is it a curb cut when there's not a curb? It looks like there's just like a flat dirt
Yeah,
area right
it's-
through here and then.
That's why I said, is it a legal curb cut? I don't know.
Who's using it right now? What is stored there?
Mr. Haskell, who is to the right of the transmission, that's just an access way for him. And it looks like there's a van back there and a couple pallets.
So it's,
I'm strongly of the opinion that there's never been a curb cut issue here.
Sure.
I've gotten them with the DOT and it's not a 2-second process.
no, understood. Um, okay. So, additional questions?
If those are covered, I'm actually cool with it.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? This is a public hearing, I'll ask if there's any members of the public who'd like to comment as well. And if you are on a Zoom meeting, please use the react function to raise your virtual hand, and I will call on you if you'd like. Other than that, I'm just gonna ramble for 15 seconds and see if anybody is looking to speak. Otherwise, I'd look for, members to say that they're good, and we're good to close the public hearing. Or if there's anything the applicant would like to say further.
No, sir.
Would you want to get those questions answered? The whole question for a couple times.
I think as Paul said, what is there now is there. When the applicant comes back looking to do anything with this property, which I mean hasn't done anything for 37 years, so, they would need to have a valid curb cut to do anything on the site. They need to have that approved by DOT. So that would be step one of whatever phase next is. And the zoning is us looking at the overlay bylaws and how it was worded to see whether what was the street is part of the overlay or not. And whether that makes a material difference and whether we want to do a cleanup at a future town meeting.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Seconded.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to close the public hearing from Laura and Eric. Again, closing the public hearing means we won't hear any further discussion, evidence, etc. from members of the public or the applicant. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Any further discussion or actions? And Paul, I guess from a procedural standpoint, you're looking for a motion to approve, endorse?
Would be a motion to approve, and we will, I've drafted that Form E, but I need to work with Elliot and Town Council. It's pretty simple, but I've never done it, and I just want to make sure it's done correctly. And then you also had a plan
So we would,
you had a precision plan included in your,
Yeah, the 81W.
yeah.
so.
We would need to get that signed off as well.
So, in this meeting for action, all you're looking for is if the board chooses a motion to approve, and then you would button up the Form E and everything else with town council and everybody else.
Right.
And-
Approve the rescission of the subdivision plan.
Do we also need to vote on the rescission of the covenant? Is that separate?
I would
I
prefer,
Yeah.
I would prefer that just for avoid confusion title-wise.
Okay, so we have two motions.
Motion to approve subdivision modification to the rescission of Decal Drive.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alan and a second from Steve. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the modification? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Sorry, is it opposed? Okay. Abstentions? Okay, so it's 5-1 in favor. And the second motion was in terms of the covenant. Laura,
Motion,
did you have a specific, go for it, sorry, I cut you off.
that's okay. Motion to rescind the covenant associated with, we didn't have an original special permit number. Associated with the rescission of Decal Drive Pilgrim Park subdivision.
I have the book and page if you want. Book 3772, page 122.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
I think that was Eric by a hair. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Go opposed.
One opposed, and abstentions? Okay. So consider your rescission approved.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
And obviously I'll work with Paul on all the fine tuning of the Form E and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
folks.
Okay. So with those out of the way, we'll dive back into planning board business and policies and approval of minutes. Rob, did you wanna, I know you had mentioned one thing that you wanted to potentially discuss this evening. Did you wanna do that
Yeah.
now, or did you wanna wait, or?
I can do it now.
Okay.
I was gonna let you pick the time. Okay. Guys, I feel like I made a mistake in the last meeting and voted down the fence company. I'd like to make a motion that we reconsider.
Okay.
And the mistake I made was I cared a lot about the people that were before me and giving me things, but I was listening to a small part of the town, and if I weigh that against the good of the rest of the town, I just don't think I made the right call that night.
Okay.
So,
So we have a motion to reconsider our special permit decision from last meeting for Zero Hill Street. The first question is, do we have a second on that?
Second.
We have a second? Okay. So, again, I would have to, Paul, we closed the public hearing in our last session for
Correct.
special, remind me for special permits. I know there is a timeline from when we close the public hearing to when we have to issue a decision, correct?
Correct.
What is that timeline? Do you,
I think we have 45 days. So you're within your time frame of issuing it.
okay. And we issued that on the 19th? If I'm not mistaken?
Let me go. November 19th.
Okay, so we're 14 days in. So we do still have some time if we wanted to reconsider. I think from a procedural standpoint, this wasn't part of our notice for our agenda tonight. So if the motion to reconsider passes, I think I would look to hold discussion and we would put it on our next agenda, if that makes sense.
fair enough.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion, I know you kind of gave an introduction, Rob, about what you were thinking.
Yeah,
Um,
and that actually is it in a nutshell. I
Okay,
focused on a small group of people and didn't really weigh the larger part of it.
okay. Any other discussion on the motion for reconsideration? Okay. If there's no other discussion, I would move forward with a vote for reconsideration here. I think maybe simpler if I do this one in a roll call, if you don't mind, Rob?
No, do it how you want.
Okay. So on the motion to reconsider, Eric, I'll start with you. No. Rob?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Laura?
No.
Alan?
No.
And I think I will vote no as well. So, thank you, Rob, for bringing it up. I appreciate your thoughts and your discussion.
Rob, thank you for bringing up that if you think you made a mistake, that's on our.
Oh, I did.
So that's cool. Thank you.
If the decision's rendered, I'm not gonna beat the bush.
With the rest of our agenda this evening, we don't have any bills and warrants to approve. In terms of planning board business, I do want to make sure that, I think we've probably seen Paul's emails. Again, tomorrow is the public event related to the communities bylaw, which will be here again, Paul, correct?
Right in this room.
Okay. So if you haven't seen enough from me yet, you will soon. Okay. And the last item here is approval of minutes. Prior to our last session, we had a number of minutes that we were looking to kind of work through here. And I had said that we should try to take a look at those over our break. Before we go into motions on specific minutes, I'll ask again, do people feel like they're prepared to vote on the minutes this evening, or would we like some additional time?
I'd like to just point one thing out because I got caught by it. Those minutes, I guess, are from a year ago. Because I originally started reviewing them, thinking they were for our last meetings. Just pointing that out to everyone. And I'll, of course, abstain, so.
Yeah, no, they are going back a little ways. There was a backlog from when Paul wasn't with us, and Brian was doing 2, potentially 3 jobs at once. And something had to give, and I think that was the thing.
It'll be cool. Just making sure people knew what they were voting for.
Okay. So, do people feel like, again, that we feel like we are prepared to vote on the minutes this evening? Do we feel like we're not, and we would like to push it off one more time?
I'm good.
I give Brian my comments.
I reviewed them. I'm gonna abstain, but I'm fully up to date.
Okay.
Do you want them one at a time or
I would do it one at a time, yes.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of, in order, July 11th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, thank you.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of July 25th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you, Laura and Alan. Further discussion on the 25th? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? One abstention.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 1st, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this one? Okay. All in favor, approving this is August the 1st, correct?
Yes.
Please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Abstention.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of August the 22nd, 2023, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 12th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes of September the 12th, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention.
Motion.
Post one just for grids?
You can if you choose, but I would prefer you didn't.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 26th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of September the 26th, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. And last but not least,
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023.
Second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay. Thank you very much, Laura. I appreciate all of the comments that you submitted as well. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Are we all done?
We have a second.
Second.
I don't believe we have anything else to address this evening other than to make sure that before we leave, we sign the Mylar for the A&R. So, with the motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, everybody. We are adjourned.